The morning Serafina left for New York, the air in our Seattle home was filled with the familiar, comfortable symphony of departure. The scent of her jasmine perfume mingled with the dark roast of my coffee. The rhythmic click of her suitcase wheels on the hardwood floor was a sound I'd grown accustomed to over the past year. It was a sound of ambition, of success, but also, I was beginning to realize, of distance. She kissed me goodbye, a practiced press of lips against mine that was warm but fleeting. "I'll call every night," she promised, the same promise she always made. She ruffled our son Owen's hair, a gesture he, at 15, endured with a stoic teenage sigh. Then she knelt, pulling our 10-year-old daughter Nora into an extra-long hug, burying her face in Nora's bright copper-colored hair. That was how 18 years of marriage worked. It was built on these comfortable routines, these predictable goodbyes, the unspoken promise of a swift and certain return. "Don't forget, Nora has soccer on Thursday, and Owen needs his science project materials," she added, her hand already on the doorknob. I gave her my usual relaxed smile, the one that said, "We've got this. Just focus on nailing that presentation." "Go be brilliant," I said. That was Monday. By Thursday morning, the symphony was out of tune. Something felt discordant, a single, sharp note of unease in the melody of my life. My name is Caleb Vance. I'm 48 years old, and I run a successful tech solutions company. Until 3 days ago, I thought I had a perfect life, the kind you see in glossy architectural magazines. A beautiful home overlooking Lake Washington, its glass walls framing the shifting moods of the water, 2 incredible kids, and a wife, Serafina, whose career in corporate consulting had taken off in recent years, even if it meant more of these business trips. "Dad, Mom didn't call last night," Nora mentioned at breakfast, her cereal spoon hovering halfway to her mouth. At 10, she noticed everything. The slight tremor in my hand as I poured the milk, the way my smile didn't quite reach my eyes. "She texted," I said, sliding my phone across the granite countertop to show her. "Meetings ran super late. Didn't want to wake you. Kiss the kids for me." The message was efficient, almost sterile. I quickly swiped it away before Nora could see how it lacked Serafina's usual warmth. Owen, already developing that teenage armor of indifference, barely looked up from his phone. "She's probably just busy. These New York trips always stress her out." He was right. Serafina had been making these quarterly trips to their East Coast office for the past year, always returning exhausted but invigorated, flush with the thrill of a deal closed or a client won. This particular trip was for a major presentation, something she'd been meticulously preparing for weeks, her notes spread across our dining table like a complex military campaign. I poured myself another coffee, the bitter taste doing little to settle the knot forming in my stomach. I checked my messages again. All of her texts this week had been shorter than usual. Brief good mornings, no amusing anecdotes about her coworkers, no complaints about the thread count of the hotel sheets. When I'd called her the previous evening, she'd sounded distracted, the ambient noise suggesting she was in a loud restaurant or a bar. "Just grabbing a quick dinner with the team," she'd explained, her voice rushed. "I'll call tomorrow with more time to talk." She hadn't called. The idea, the one that would change everything, came to me while I was driving back from dropping the kids at school. It was nearly spring break. Owen and Nora only had Friday left before a week off. Serafina wasn't due back until Tuesday. What if we surprised her? The thought was a sudden, bright flare in the fog of my anxiety. We could fly out Friday after school, spend a spectacular weekend exploring the city, and Serafina could extend her stay. The kids would be ecstatic. And honestly, I missed my wife. I missed the real her, not the abbreviated, distracted version I've been getting through my phone. When I pitched the idea to the kids that afternoon, their reactions were exactly what I'd hoped for. "Yes!" Nora bounced on the couch, her eyes wide with excitement. "Can we see the Statue of Liberty? And Central Park? And a Broadway show?" Owen tried to play it cool, but I caught the unmistakable glint of excitement in his eyes. "That's actually pretty awesome, Dad." "Mom's gonna freak out," I assured them, already pulling my laptop onto my lap, the plan solidifying with every keystroke. "In a good way. We'll stay at her hotel. I'll arrange everything." That evening, I texted Serafina casually, careful not to betray our secret. "How's the big city treating you?" Her response came nearly an hour later. "Busy, exhausted. Presentation went well, but still putting out fires. Missing you guys. Can't wait to get home. Give the kids hugs from me." I smiled, my earlier anxieties momentarily forgotten. I pictured her face when we showed up at her hotel, the Waldorf Astoria, where her company always booked their executives. I'd already called and reserved a family suite on the same floor as her room, mentioning to the friendly reservation agent that we were planning a surprise. How romantic, the woman had gushed. I'll make sure not to spoil it if she happens to stop by the front desk. Everything was set. Bags were packed in secret. I'd arranged for my second-in-command to handle the office. My excitement built steadily throughout Thursday, a welcome antidote to the unease. And then, at 11:49 p.m., while I was double-checking our flight details, a text from Serafina lit up my phone. It sent the first real, undeniable chill down my spine. Evening was unforgettable. Want to repeat tomorrow night? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Before I could even formulate a response, another text followed, a frantic backtrack. Sorry, wrong person, meant for Sarah about the client dinner. So tired I can barely type. Night. I set the phone down slowly on the cold marble of the kitchen island. Sarah, Serafina, didn't work with anyone named Sarah, not one she had ever mentioned in 18 years. I knew the names of her team, her closest colleagues, even the annoying ones from accounting. There was no Sarah. For a moment, a dark, suffocating moment, I considered canceling our surprise. Maybe this wasn't the best time, but I dismissed the thought as quickly as it came. She was exhausted. She made a simple mistake. Besides, the flights were booked. The kids were bursting with excitement. And maybe, though, I didn't fully acknowledge this to myself at the time I needed to see her face when she wasn't expecting me. I needed to see the truth for myself. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake, the city lights of Seattle painting shifting patterns on the ceiling, replaying Serafina's message in my mind. Evening was unforgettable. The words were intimate, charged with a meaning that felt utterly alien to our recent, perfunctory conversations. Who was Sarah? Why the secrecy? Why not just say which colleague she'd been with? By morning, I had managed to construct a fragile fortress of denial around my heart. I was overreacting. We had a solid marriage, a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. One strange text message wasn't enough to demolish an 18-year history. I made breakfast for the kids, forcing a cheerfulness I didn't feel. Pancakes with blueberries for Nora, eggs and toast for Owen. When they left for school, I called my office to finalize arrangements. Everything all right, Caleb? Asked Jim, my operations manager. It's not like you to take off on such short notice. Just a family thing, I explained, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. Surprising Serafina in New York. The kids are excited. Sounds great, Jim said, though I thought I caught a note of hesitation in his voice. Actually, now that you mention it, I saw Serafina last week. At Morrison's downtown, she was having lunch. Morrison's was an upscale restaurant near Serafina's office. Nothing unusual about that. My stomach tightened anyway. And she was with some guy, Jim continued, oblivious to the turmoil his words were causing. Looked pretty intense. I waved, but she didn't see me. Probably a client, I said automatically, the words a reflex. You know how focused she gets. Sure, Jim agreed quickly. That must be it. Anyway, have a great trip. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table, the half-eaten toast mocking me from my plate. Jim's casual observation joined the strange text, forming a constellation of doubt in the dark sky of my mind. Don't jump to conclusions, I told myself. This is your wife, the mother of your children. But the fortress of denial was beginning to crumble. Friday moved in a blur. Last-minute packing, the frantic rush to SeaTac Airport. The kids' excitement was a tangible thing, a bright, buzzing energy that I tried to absorb, using it to push away the nagging dread that had taken permanent residence in my gut. Our flight was delayed for 2 hours due to thunderstorms on the East Coast. The delay felt like a cosmic taunt. As Nora wandered the terminal and Owen retreated into his headphones, I found a quiet corner near the gate. The CEO and me took over, silencing the wounded husband. When faced with a problem, you don't guess, you gather data. I pulled out my phone and made a call I never thought I'd have to make. I found the number through a discreet corporate security contact. It was to a high-end private investigation firm in New York. I need surveillance on a guest at the Waldorf Astoria, I said, my voice low and even, my wife. I need to know who she's meeting. Photos, video, a full report. I'll pay any price for speed and discretion. I land in 5 hours. The man on the other end was professional and efficient. By the time I boarded the plane, An operative was already on their way to the hotel. Information was power, and I was about to arm myself. By the time we landed at JFK, it was nearly 8 p.m. The city was a glittering, electric beast. As the taxi battled its way into Manhattan, the iconic skyline came into view, a breathtaking panorama of light and ambition. Nora pressed her face against the window, mesmerized. "Is Mom going to cry?" "I bet she's going to cry," she whispered. "Probably," I said, smiling at her reflection in the glass, a genuine smile for the first time all day. "But she might be in a meeting, so we'll check into our room first, and then figure out the best way to surprise her." The Waldorf Astoria stood majestic and illuminated against the darkening sky, a landmark of old-world elegance. The kids gaped at the ornate, cavernous lobby as we rolled our luggage toward the reception desk. A young man with a crisp uniform and a name tag reading Michael greeted us warmly. "Welcome to the Waldorf Astoria. Checking in?" "Yes. Reservation under Caleb Vance." He typed efficiently on his keyboard. "Ah, yes, Mr. Vance. We have your family suite ready on the 12th floor." His eyes flicked up, a hint of professional curiosity in them. "You mentioned you're surprising your wife?" "That's right. Serafina Vance. She's staying here on business." Michael's fingers hovered over his keyboard. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face recognition. Pity? It was gone before I could be sure, replaced by his polite customer service smile. "Yes, Mrs. Vance is indeed staying with us. Room 1214. He lowered his voice slightly. "I should mention that Mrs. Vance has a do not disturb status on her room currently." "That's fine," I said, my heart starting to beat a little faster. "We'll get settled in our room first." "Is there a way to find out if she's in the hotel now?" Michael glanced at his screen again. "According to our system, her key card was last used to enter the room about an hour ago." "Perfect. She was in. Maybe resting." "Great, thank you. We'll take our room keys." As Michael processed our check-in, another employee approached the desk and whispered something to him. Michael's eyes widened slightly before he nodded and returned his attention to us. "Mr. Vance, I've placed you in room 1220, just down the hall from Mrs. Vance. Here are your key cards." Something about the exchange felt off, but I was too focused on the imminent reunion to process it. We rode the gilded elevator to the 12th floor. Owen had grown quiet, sensing the shift in my mood. Nora, however, was practically vibrating with anticipation. "Can we go see Mom right away? Please, Dad?" "Let's drop our bags first," I suggested as the elevator doors opened onto a plush, silent hallway. "Maybe freshen up a bit." It was a stall, and I think we all knew it. Our suite was spacious and elegant, with a stunning view of the city's glittering tapestry of lights. Under any other circumstances, I would have taken a moment to appreciate the luxury, to watch the kids' delight. But tonight, the opulence felt suffocating, the beautiful view a mocking backdrop to the ugly drama I feared was about to unfold. We dropped our bags. I splashed cold water on my face in the marble bathroom, staring at the stranger in the mirror. His eyes were shadowed with fatigue and a fear he was trying desperately to conceal. "Okay," I said, forcing a final burst of enthusiasm for Nora's sake. "Let's go surprise your mom." We walked down the carpeted hallway, the thick pile swallowing the sound of our footsteps, until we reached room 1214. The brass numbers gleamed under the soft sconce lighting. I hesitated, then knelt down to Nora's level. "Why don't you knock, sweetheart? When Mom answers, you can shout, 'Surprise!'" Nora nodded solemnly, accepting her important mission. She raised her small fist and knocked firmly on the heavy wooden door. Silence. She knocked again, louder this time. "Mom, it's us." Still nothing. The silence from behind the door was profound, absolute. "Maybe she's in the shower," Owen suggested, his voice low. As I was considering our next move, the door to the adjacent room opened, and a middle-aged man in a hotel uniform emerged with a room service tray. His name tag identified him as Roberto. "Everything all right?" he asked, his expression kind. "We're trying to surprise my wife," I explained, the words feeling foolish on my tongue. "The front desk said she's in, but she's not answering." Roberto looked at the door number, then back at us. A flicker of recognition, then deep discomfort crossed his face. "Ah, the lady in 1214. He hesitated, looking from me to the innocent faces of my children. "I just delivered room service there, about 20 minutes ago." He paused again, clearly wrestling with what to say next. There were two people in the room. I felt the air leave my lungs, my chest tightening into a painful knot. My wife and Roberto shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. A gentleman. They ordered champagne and dinner for two. Nora, oblivious, tugged at my sleeve. Dad, is Mom having a work meeting in her room? Probably, I said automatically, the word a hollow echo. My mind was racing, a chaotic flood of possibilities. None of them good. Champagne, a gentleman. Evening was unforgettable. Thank you, I managed to say to Roberto, who nodded sympathetically and continued down the hallway. I pulled out my phone and called Serafina's number. Through the thick door, we could hear the muffled, insistent ringtone. It rang 4 times, then stopped abruptly, as if silenced by hand. A second later, my phone buzzed with an incoming text from her. In an important meeting, call you back later. I stared at the message, a hot, blinding rage rising in my face. Behind that door, my wife of 18 years was ignoring her family's calls while drinking champagne with an unknown man. Kids, I said, my voice dangerously steady, why don't you go back to our room for a few minutes? I'm going to try to reach Mom another way. Owen gave me a long, searching look. At 15, he was no longer a child, and I could see the dawning, horrified comprehension in his eyes. He put a protective arm around his sister's shoulders. Come on, Nora. Let's go check out the room service menu. I'm starving after that flight. But what about surprising Mom? She protested, her lower lip trembling. We will, I assured her, my voice softening. I just need a few minutes to coordinate. Give me a room key. Owen passed me one of our key cards before guiding his sister back down the hall. Once they were out of sight, I stood alone before room 1214. My training in business negotiations had always emphasized the importance of information. Never confront without knowing exactly what you're dealing with. But this wasn't business. This was my life, my marriage, my children waiting down the hall for answers I wasn't sure I could give them. I pulled out my phone again and dialed Serafina's number. This time, it went straight to voicemail. Her cheerful, professional greeting felt like a dagger in my heart. I took a deep, shaky breath. Serafina, it's me, I said into the phone, my voice low and raw. I'm outside your hotel room. The kids and I came to surprise you for the weekend. Please, open the door. I ended the call and waited. The silence stretched for 1 minute. 2. Then I heard movement inside the room. Hushed. Urgent voices. The sound of closet doors opening and closing. Finally, the deadbolt clicked. The door cracked open, and Serafina peered out. Her face was flushed, her hair disheveled. She wore a thick hotel robe, tied tightly at the waist. Her eyes, when they met mine, were wide with pure, unadulterated panic. Caleb. My name was a strangled whisper on her lips. She stepped into the hallway quickly, pulling the door almost closed behind her, a subconscious barrier between me and whatever or whoever was inside. What are you doing here? Surprise, I said, the word flat and devoid of joy. The kids wanted to see New York. I thought we'd make it a family weekend. Her eyes darted nervously back toward the room, then to my face, searching for something. That's wonderful, but you should have called. I'm in the middle of a very important meeting. A meeting, I finished for her, with champagne and dinner for 2 at 9 p.m. Her expression shifted instantly from shock to defensiveness. Yes, actually. Donovan Reese is here, from the New York office. We're finalizing the Davidson proposal. It's crucial. Donovan Reese. The name was unfamiliar. I studied my wife's face. 18 years of marriage had taught me her tells, the slight crinkle beside her left eye, when she wasn't being entirely truthful. The way her hand drifted to her collarbone when she was nervous. Both signals were flashing bright red. Is that right? I took a step toward the door. Then you won't mind if I pop in and say hello to Donovan. Caleb, please. She put a hand on my chest, physically stopping my advance. Her touch, which once felt like home, now felt like a betrayal. This isn't a good time. I'm not dressed for company, and we're deep in these projections. Why don't you take the kids for a late dinner? I'll meet you in the lobby in an hour. Who's Sarah? The question cut through her rehearsed excuses. What? She asked, thrown off guard. Your text. Last night, the unforgettable evening you meant for Sarah. She blinked rapidly, her mind racing for a plausible lie. Yes, Sarah Peterson, a new hire in marketing. We had dinner with the client yesterday. Funny, I don't remember you ever mentioning a Sarah Peterson before. There are 4,000 employees in this company, Caleb, she snapped, her tone hardening. I don't tell you about every single one. What is this? An interrogation? From inside the room came the unmistakable clink of a glass being set down on a hard surface. Serafina flinched. I said slowly, my voice dangerously calm, that Donovan Reese can wait 5 minutes while you greet your children. They're in room 1220. They've been traveling all day just to see you. She hesitated, clearly torn between the disaster unfolding in the hallway and the one waiting in her room. Give me 10 minutes, she said finally, her voice strained. I need to change and wrap things up. 5, I countered. The kids are tired and hungry. She nodded reluctantly and slipped back inside, the door closing with a firm, final click. I was left alone in the hallway, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. Anger, suspicion, and a strange, detached clarity. I had come to New York seeking answers, and I was beginning to find them in the silence behind that door. I returned to our suite. Nora had fallen asleep on one of the beds. Owen sat on the edge of the other, scrolling through his phone with a forced casualness that didn't fool me for a second. Mom coming? He asked without looking up. She'll be here in a few minutes. She was in a meeting. Owen nodded, still not meeting my eyes. Then he looked up, his young face etched with a wisdom beyond his years. Was it just a meeting, Dad? The directness of his question knocked the wind out of me. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with an encrypted email notification. The subject line was simple. Report, Vance. I opened it. Inside were time-stamped photos and short video clips. Serafina and a man I didn't recognize, laughing intimately at the hotel bar 2 nights ago. Serafina and the same man entering the elevator, his hand possessively on the small of her back. The final clip, from just last night, showed them kissing passionately against a marble column in a deserted lobby. It was raw, irrefutable proof. A cold fury settled over me, sharp and clear. I don't know yet, son, I admitted, my voice now steady with a terrible certainty, but I promise you, I'm going to find out. He nodded solemnly. Just don't lie to us, okay? Even if it's bad. I promise, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. A soft knock interrupted us. Serafina entered, a complete transformation from the flustered woman in the hallway. She was now dressed in sleek black pants and a blue silk blouse, her hair perfectly combed, her makeup refreshed. She was composed, professional, an actress taking the stage. Oh my goodness, she exclaimed, her voice pitched a little too high. What a wonderful surprise. Nora stirred, blinking awake. Mom! She scrambled off the bed and threw herself into Serafina's arms. My sweet girl, Serafina murmured, hugging her tightly. I can't believe you're here. Owen hung back, watching the performance with skeptical eyes. Serafina moved to embrace him, and he accepted the hug stiffly. I observed the scene from a distance, struck by how easily she had shifted roles. Had she always been this good an actress? Dinner, ordered from room service, was a masterclass in tension. Serafina kept up a stream of cheerful hollow chatter, asking about school and friends. She told sanitized stories about her meetings, carefully dropping the names of multiple colleagues, establishing alibis I hadn't even asked for. Not once did she mention Donovan Reese. After Nora had fallen asleep again and Owen had retreated to the bedroom, Serafina and I sat across from each other. This was such a thoughtful surprise, she said, swirling the last of her wine. I just wish you'd given me some warning. That would defeat the purpose of a surprise, I replied coolly. Even so, my schedule is packed. I don't want you and the kids to be disappointed. We'll manage, I said. In fact, I've already made plans for tomorrow. Breakfast in the hotel restaurant at 9 a.m. I've invited some of your colleagues to join us. The color drained from her face. What? Who? Your team, the ones you've been working with. I thought it would be nice for the kids to meet them. I spoke to your assistant before we left Seattle. She was happy to arrange it. It was a lie built around a core of hard, ugly truth she couldn't see yet. It was a trap, and she was walking right into it. Caleb, that's not necessary, she said quickly. They're incredibly busy. Actually, they seem quite eager to meet us, I pressed on, my confidence fueled by the images on my phone, especially Donovan Reese. Your assistant mentioned you two have been working very closely together. She set her wine glass down with a shaking hand. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Arranging a friendly breakfast? You know what I mean, she hissed, leaning forward. These passive-aggressive games. The surprise visit. What are you trying to prove? I met her gaze steadily, the pretense finally gone. I'm not trying to prove anything, Serafina, but I think you're hiding something. And tomorrow morning, one way or another, we're going to find out what it is. The next morning unfolded with a sense of grim inevitability. Nora, blissfully unaware, chattered happily about having breakfast in a fancy hotel restaurant. Owen was solemn and quiet, an old soul in a young body, helping his sister with her shoes while I made a few final, crucial arrangements. When we arrived, Serafina was already waiting, seated at a large round table with 4 other people. There were 3 women I vaguely recognized from company Christmas parties, and a man who matched the description of who I imagined Donovan Reese to be. Tall, polished, with dark hair and an expensive suit, he exuded an air of effortless confidence. He was the kind of man who looked like he belonged in luxury hotel rooms with other men's wives. "There's Mom!" Nora waved and rushed over. I followed more slowly, Owen at my side, a silent, supportive presence. Serafina made the nervous introductions. "Everyone, this is my husband, Caleb, and our children, Owen and Nora. Caleb, these are my colleagues, Patricia, Samantha, Rebecca, and Donovan Reese, whom I mentioned last night." Donovan stood, extending a hand. His grip was firm, his eyes avoiding mine. The women smiled politely, clearly oblivious to the undercurrent of war at their table. "It's so lovely to finally meet Serafina's family," Samantha said warmly. "She talks about you all the time." "Does she?" I asked mildly, taking my seat. "How interesting." Serafina shot me a pleading look across the table. I ignored it, turning my attention to Donovan. "So, Donovan, how long have you been working with my wife?" He cleared his throat. About a year and a half. "And in that time, you've gotten to know her quite well, I imagine." The table fell silent. Even Nora seemed to sense the crushing tension. "Caleb," Serafina warned quietly. I smiled coldly and signaled to a waiter, who approached with my laptop. "Before we order," I announced to the table, my voice steady despite the rage thrumming in my veins, "I have a little presentation. I believe in due diligence, both in business and in my personal life. So when I had some doubts, I commissioned a report. The results were illuminating." Serafina half rose from her seat. "Caleb, please don't." But it was too late. The waiter connected the laptop to the projector. An image flashed onto the white screen on the wall beside our table. Impossible to ignore. The footage, professionally shot from a discreet distance, was damning, a silent chronicle of betrayal. There was Serafina and Donovan entering the hotel earlier in the week, his hand possessively on the small of her back. Another clip from late Tuesday night showed them in the deserted lobby, where he pushed her against a marble column, their kiss passionate and lingering, not the kiss of colleagues. The final clip, from just 2 days ago, showed them at the hotel bar. Serafina was laughing, her head thrown back, as Donovan whispered in her ear. Her hand slid up his thigh under the table. The table was deadly silent. The only sound was Nora's confused whisper, "Dad, what is this?" Owen had gone pale, his jaw clenched. The 3 female colleagues stared, open-mouthed, from the screen to Serafina, whose face had crumpled in absolute shame and horror. I turned off the projector. "This," I said, my voice cutting through the silence, "is the truth, son. Your mother has been having an affair with Mr. Reese here for the past 8 months. "Caleb," Serafina gasped. The word a choked sob. "Not like this." "When would have been a good time, Serafina? After another year of lies? When the kids are in college? Or were you just planning to leave us all together?" Patricia stood abruptly. "I think we should go." "No, please stay," I said, my voice laced with ice. "Finish your breakfast. I'm the one who's leaving. I've seen enough." I turned to my children. "Owen, Nora, we're going." Owen stood immediately. Nora remained glued to Serafina's side, confusion and tears welling in her eyes. "Mommy, what's happening?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Serafina wept, wrapping her arms around our daughter. "Just grown-up problems." "Nora," I said gently but firmly, "we need to go pack. We're going home today." I looked at Owen. "Take your sister upstairs, please." My son, my strong, brave son, nodded grimly, prying his reluctant sister away from their mother. As they left, I turned back to the table. Donovan and the 3 women sat in a state of frozen, uncomfortable shock. Serafina had buried her face in her hands. "I apologize for disrupting your breakfast," I told them, "but I thought you should all know who you're working with." I looked from Serafina to Donovan, both of them. With that, I walked away. As I crossed the restaurant, a hand grabbed my arm. It was Donovan Reese, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You had no right to do that," he hissed. "To humiliate her in front of her colleagues, her children." I stared at him. This stranger who had dismantled my life. "And you had no right to sleep with my wife. Yet, here we are." "She was unhappy," he said, his voice lower now. "She felt invisible." "When was the last time you actually saw her, Caleb? Really saw her?" The question hit harder than a fist. But this wasn't the time for self-recrimination. "That's between me and my wife," I said firmly. "Stay away from my family." I tried to pull away, but he held on. "I know how she sounds when she'd plunk." I didn't let him finish. My fist connected with his jaw before I even realized I'd moved. The crack of bone on bone was sickeningly satisfying. He stumbled backward, hand flying to his face in shock. A security guard appeared instantly. "Gentlemen, this is a 5-star establishment," he warned. Donovan straightened his jacket, his eyes blazing with fury. "You're going to regret that." "Not as much as you'll regret ever meeting my wife," I replied, my voice deadly calm. I looked him square in the eye. "I told you to stay away from my family, Reese. I won't tell you again." The journey home was a vacuum of sound and emotion. Nora fell asleep on the plane, her small face tear-streaked even in slumber, exhausted by a crisis she couldn't comprehend. Owen put on his headphones the moment we sat down and stared out the window for the entire 5-hour flight, a silent sentinel guarding his own shattered world. I tried to read, but the words blurred. The security footage played on a loop in my mind. The kiss, the touch, the laughter, that wasn't for me. Landing in Seattle felt surreal. We were returning to a life that no longer existed. The house looked exactly as we'd left it, a perfect stage set for a play whose actors had forgotten their lines. Everything had changed. That night, after I tucked a clinging, fearful Nora into bed, I had the conversation I'd been dreading. I sat with Owen in the darkened living room, the lights of the city across the lake twinkling like distant, indifferent stars. I told him everything I knew, without embellishment or excuses. I kept my promise not to lie. He listened without speaking, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists. When I finished, he just nodded, a single, sharp movement in the gloom. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Serafina returned on Tuesday, as planned. I had taken the kids to my parents' home for dinner, a buffer against the inevitable confrontation. When we returned, her car was in the driveway. A ghost at our feast. Inside, she was sitting on the couch where we had spent countless evenings. Nora ran to her immediately. Owen hesitated, then followed slowly. The air was thick with unspoken words. Once the kids were upstairs, she spoke first. "I've been served with divorce papers." "Yes. You're requesting full custody." "Primary custody," I corrected. "You'll have visitation rights." She nodded, accepting it. "I've spoken with my company," she said, her voice a monotone. "I've requested a permanent transfer to the Seattle office. No more travel, and I've started therapy." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance for counseling for us?" I had asked myself that same question 1,000 times in the past few days. Could 18 years and 2 children be salvaged from this wreckage? Could I ever look at her without seeing her with him? "No," I said finally, the word tasting like finality itself. "I've made my decision. The trust is gone, Serafina. It's completely gone." I told her she could stay in the guest room until the divorce was finalized, for the kids' sake. After that, she would need to find her own place. "And Donovan?" I asked, a final, painful question. "He's been fired," she whispered. "The company has a strict policy. They found out he used the corporate expense account for us." I felt no satisfaction at the news, only a profound emptiness. In the weeks that followed, we established a new, painful normal. We were 2 ghosts haunting the same house, communicating only through text messages about logistics and the children. It was a cold, awkward truce. Owen remained distant with his mother. Nora, more forgiving by nature, slowly warmed to her, though a new caution lingered in her eyes, a child's awareness that the world was not as safe as she had thought. One evening, about 2 months after New York, I took the kids to the pier at Lake Washington. The sun was setting, casting a brilliant, golden light across the water. Nora skipped stones, their splashes echoing in the quiet air. Owen sat with me on a bench. "Are you okay, Dad?" he asked suddenly, his voice quiet. I looked at my son, struck by how much he'd matured in these difficult months. I'm getting there, I said honestly. How about you? He shrugged. I keep thinking about what Mom did, trying to understand it. Some things don't have easy explanations, son. Nora ran up to us then, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Dad, Owen, I got a stone to skip 5 times. Did you see? That's amazing, sweetheart, I said, pulling her into a hug. As I held my daughter, with my son beside me, and the sun bleeding into the horizon, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was the beginning of acceptance. Our family of 4 was broken, but this little unit of 3, huddled together against the coming dark, was still whole. It was my future. Hey, I said, releasing Nora. What do you say we start a new tradition? Every Friday, we come here to watch the sunset. Just the 3 of us? Nora asked. For now, I said. And later, who knows? Life has a way of surprising you. Owen caught my eye, and a small, sad smile touched his lips. Sometimes, he said, surprises aren't so bad. I looked out across the water, watching the last sliver of sun dip below the horizon, plunging the world into a soft, promising twilight. No, I agreed, my voice quiet but sure. Sometimes they're exactly what we need. We stood together as the daylight faded, 3 figures silhouetted against the afterglow, ready to face whatever came next.